Hey, kids cook real food. Katie Kimball here for the Healthy Parenting Connector. And we have a topic today that is near and dear to my heart as a woman, as an NFP practicing married woman, and as someone who loves root causes. I love science. I love knowing how things work and digging into my own body, whether that be my reproductive cycles, my fertility, or just like, why is my skin itchy? Why am I having a stomach ache right now? I love biology and root causes. And I've got two guests today who are going to help us dig in specifically for our preteen and teenage girls on how they too can understand their bodies. Thank you so much for being here, ladies.
Thanks for having us, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
Friends, I'd like you to meet Jackie Aguilar and Grace Stark. They are kind of the maybe not co-founders, whatever. They both work for Natural Womanhood, and I'll do with the official introduction, and then we're going to dive into the good stuff. So Grace Emily Stark is the editor of Natural Womanhood. Grace holds an MA in bioethics and health policy from Loyola University, Chicago, and a BS in healthcare management and policy from Georgetown University. Somebody else loves learning. She's a recent alum of the Paul Ramsey Institute Fellowship at the Center for Bioethics and Culture. And in 2019, she was awarded a Robert Novak Alumni Fund Journalism Fellowship. Well done, Grace. Grace and her husband are a certified teaching couple for the Couple to Couple League, teaching the symptothermal method. And that was my introduction into NFP, Natural Family Planning, and also the editor of the magazine way back before I started blogging answered a question for me that sent me down the path of online entrepreneurship. So like that is like a crazy connection just personally for me. I love
Awesome.
that. And Jackie, my second guest, and by the way, this is like we're in episode 200 something, and I think this is the first time I've had two guests. So I'm like a little bit fascinated by the dynamics that are going to happen here. Jackie Aguilar is the Director of Education for Natural Womanhood. Jackie's a trained fertility care practitioner, instructing women and couples in the Creighton model, and a certified symptothermal method instructor with the Couple to Couple League. Jackie also holds a degree in marketing from Texas A&M University. As a former Zumba instructor, she enjoys salsa dancing with her husband, with whom she has 5 children. Now, for those of you in the listening audience, if I just use some words and phrases that you don't understand, that's totally okay. These women understand women's bodies, and we're going to talk about that today, again, especially for our young daughters. If you don't have daughters, that's okay too, because I think our little guys need to know some of this too, or at least we need to have the knowledge for when they ask questions. Amen?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, ladies, how did you get passionate about this specific topic? And Grace, I'll let you go first.
I got interested in it a little over 10 years ago now when I started dating my husband. Uh, he and I got serious pretty quickly, and I had kind of started learning more about fertility awareness. Mainly because I was seeing a lot of the fallout around me in college of kind of the sexual revolution, just kind of that typical like friends on the pill and dealing with side effects and kind of like being used and abused with the hookup culture and all that kind of stuff. And so I really got more interested and more curious about what the alternative to that way of living was. And natural family planning and fertility awareness really stood out at the time as being the antidote to all of that. So I dove into it more. And when I started dating my husband, um, just started, really thinking for the first time about what I was going to do when push came to shove for family planning. Um, and he knew what it was. He had an aunt who taught it. And so that was great. I found that out that not only was he on board, but he was familiar with it. And when we got married, we learned the Billings method originally, which is a mucus only method. Basically, because that was about all there was that we could find near us at the time, and we were in a major metropolitan area. We were in the DC area, but prior to Natural Womanhood beginning, it was really hard to find kind of a one-stop shop where you could find out about all of the different methods, how they differed, how to find instructors in those methods, because you kind of had to know what to Google. You already had to kind of be familiar with the fact that there were different methods and be able to look them up to find an instructor. So if you're totally new to it, there wasn't a one-stop shop where you could just find all this info, and that's really what Natural Womanhood provides. And so I started writing for them a few years later, after getting married, moving to Guam. My husband was in the Navy. Um, and yeah, started writing for Natural Womanhood when I first found out about them, and needed a portable career. So I started writing, and just kind of started growing my career there and learning more and more about fertility awareness. Started teaching, learned the symptothermal method, started teaching it. Um, and now I'm here today as the editor of Natural Womanhood. So it's been a fun, very unexpected journey, but I'm so grateful to get to do the work that I do and to work with wonderful people like Jackie. So
Yeah, it's so amazing that just 10 years ago, and if you happen to be listening to this later, where this is filming in late 2023, just 10 years ago, you weren't able to find that information. I'm trying to think. We'll definitely link from our show notes to a very old post of mine over at Kitchen Stewardship. I'm curious if it's over 10 years old, where we actually had a Billings, a CCL, and a Creighton teacher in person at our church. We hosted and like kind of videoed that, and I wrote up the notes. But you're right, it was not easy. And what we won't do right now is define all of those methods, but we'll definitely link to resources. And it's great that you use the word mucus in the first 5 minutes. That's like, let's just dive right in, because you know what? We can't be bashful about our bodies. That's like part of one of the many problems. And I love that your whole career is now a problems-based, or solutions-based approach to this problem that you saw with hookup culture. I'm like ready to hear more. But Jackie, tell us about you and how you got into this field.
Yeah. So, my husband and I didn't know anything about this. Like, when we were dating, we were just, deeply attracted to each other, and, lots of desire there. We couldn't wait to get married and like totally, live out all of that deeper intimacy. Um, but all I had ever heard growing up, even from my mom and from school, was, the responsible thing to do is to take birth control. So like a month before I got married, I got a prescription from my primary care and started taking, because I thought, oh, this is the responsible thing to do. I don't know how many kids I want to have. By the time I got to my wedding day and our honeymoon, it was like a light switch had turned off on me, and like all that attraction, desire that I had felt for my husband, like it was gone. I had no libido. I was like intimacy was really awkward, and I was confused, and I had this brain fog, and I couldn't figure out like what happened. Like I was so ready, to just do all these wonderful things with my husband. I was so excited, and I was so let down. Like all those hopes for that intimacy just kind of went crashing down. So several months later, like it was the end of the year, we just said, oh, I don't want to take this anymore. I don't like the way I'm feeling. And I stopped taking it, and it was like, again, like a light switch, like boom, all of my like energy and desire returned, and my attraction for my husband. I was like, oh, now I see you, there you are. And just like our communication, our intimacy, everything improved. And we were like, oh my gosh, what was that? And thank goodness that, that there were medical professionals and then other friends around us that kind of led us to this information. And just from there, we just our relationship has just grown and grown in intimacy, and we didn't realize all of this was possible. And we thought, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know about this, because we don't want them to make the same mistake we did. So that's kind of where, and then yeah, my journey is we got trained in symptothermal. Then when we dealt with infertility, and so Creighton became the best method for us at that moment. And and then I loved that, the medical aspects of that, so I became a certified instructor there. So anyway, and now I'm teaching my girls, and it's like full circle, and it's amazing.
It is, again, fascinating to hear your personal story, because I've read it, like intellectually, I've read side effects of the contraceptive pill, right? Low libido. And I believed it, but amazing that it was like a light switch in a month of
Yeah.
taking it, and you could literally feel the on and the off, or the off and the on in your case. I'm totally fascinated, and of course that would pull you into wanting to know more. You mentioned, Jackie, that your mom had some certain advice for you, and I think that's where we got to start with this concept of, well, if we're talking with our kids about fertility, that's the talk, right? That's the talk. What are they're going to teach us about the 45-minute or the 5-minute talk that we give our girls, and then we'll be done, right? Ladies, why is this an outdated idea to just talk to our kids about sex once, call it good? What let's like expand out on that idea. Go ahead, Jackie. You're like nodding. Like, I'm ready. Give me the
Yes.
question, Katie.
Just I mean, just like any other subject, we don't do that with math or science. You know, I mean, we start them out with like, let's learn to count, and then like, here's the ABCs, and now we'll read sight words, and then we'll go on to novels. Like, the body literacy should be the same way. We start off with like, you know, probably naming their anatomy, or wherever the questions first start coming. But their questions should never be something that's like, oh, why are you asking that question? That's shameful, or we shouldn't talk about that. You should never give them that feeling about their bodies, but just be open, like, oh, that's a good question, and then you give them, an age appropriate answer at this time. Oh, well, babies are part their mommy and part their daddy, and then when they get older, they learn, oh, that part is an egg and that part is a sperm, and then, and it's like a slow progression throughout their life, so that this information is normalized, and they see, this subject as something that is good, and just a holistic part of who they are as women, and developing into that.
That's beautiful. Anything you want to add, Grace?
Yeah, I think having it built up in our minds of this one time talk, right? There's so much pressure there to get it right when you do have that talk. But if you view it as an ongoing conversation where corrections can be made, where misconceptions can be corrected, then there's a lot less pressure on us as parents, right? To just get it all right in one go. If you view it as an ongoing conversation, and it doesn't have to be this, yeah, just like this big like elephant in the room. When you just view speaking openly and honestly about your body. I tell a story about well, she's 4 now. I think at the time she was 2 or 3, following me into the bathroom when I was on my period. And I pulled a pad out of my underwear. I didn't try to shoo her out. I knew I was going to have to change, but I didn't try to shoo her out of the room. Because I just kind of wanted to see what she would make of it. And I just pulled it out, and she saw it, obviously. And, 2 or 3-year-old knows what blood looks like. And, asked me, Mommy, why are you bleeding? And I said, oh, it's okay. This is the blood that would normally be inside mommy's tummy. Later we've since started calling it a uterus, but at the time, this is the blood that would be in mommy's tummy that would be keeping a baby warm and cozy. But I don't have a baby in my tummy this month. And so this is going to come out for a couple days, and it doesn't hurt me. And once it stops, more will come in my tummy in case a baby comes. And she just kind of went, oh, okay, walked out of the room. And there, my 2, 3-year-old daughter had her first introduction to the concept of a period in a way that connected it to the beautiful reality of motherhood, which all even 2, 3-year-old little girls know to love babies. So making that connection that early on, and defining that this is not a bad or a shameful or a painful thing that you need to be afraid of, as early as we can, instilling this is connected to the biological reality of motherhood, which is a gift and wonderful, and that it's not bad or shameful or yucky. I think those are 2 of the most important things that we can start inculcating in really simple, really age appropriate ways very, very early on. So you don't have to view it as this, like, you got one shot to tell your 12-year-old about the realities of womanhood and do it in a way that's not going to totally figure out, right?
Totally. That's a really practical visual for us. Like, every mom may have that opportunity, and just the way you stated that, and just, kind of flowed into it. Ooh, pun not intended, but that worked. That, you know what I mean? Like, that was very practical. And also, what parent doesn't want? This is the easier way, right? The talk is intimidating and hard and full of pressure. It's actually easier to do it this way and better for the kids. Now, Grace, I want you to spin off of that, because you started touching on girls don't need to hear that their cycle is a bad thing. What are some of the messages that are negative that are being sent to our girls by the culture?
Sure. Well, there's those birth control pill or birth control commercials that tell you, like, oh, you don't need to have a period, or, kind of make having a period seem like this awful thing that you should be trying to rid yourself of, right? And just even the way that we see it portrayed in movies and TV shows, it's something to be like afraid of, it's something to dread. Um, there's no positive talk, and there's no explanation of well, here's why it happens, right? And so it just gets viewed as this mysterious kind of like scary thing, that unless it's contextualized, of course girls are going to be freaked out by the fact that when they find out that they're going to bleed, you know, for a week every month for the next 30 something years. Like, who wouldn't be freaked out about that without the context of, there's a reason, there's a
Right.
purpose, and we can manage it in a way that doesn't totally disrupt our lives. Um, and we can embrace it in a way that doesn't totally disrupt our lives.
Mhm.
Um, and also knowing that it's normal, right? Like, what
Yeah.
preteen teenage girl doesn't want to know that she's normal? I gave kind of an intro talk to these topics to our parish youth group with girls ages like 12 to 16, I want to say. And I remember at the end when they were asking questions, one of them just said, I just really want to know that I'm normal. I
Hmm.
just thought, well, of course you do. That's what literally every preteen and teen girl like longs for. Is to,
Right, to be normal like everyone
right.
else. That is absolutely a desire, and I think you're right that the context is key because the physical reality of the experience, it's very hard to find anything positive, in what we have to quote go through every month. Like I'm trying to work on avoiding the negative language with my daughter, but I'm like, yeah, like when it's actually going on, it stinks. But we have to look forward, right? We have to look for what the purpose is. I think for our future, I don't know if I'm doing it right. I can't wait to continue learning throughout this interview. And that's where I think we need to start. I'm going to pass the ball to Jackie because I think it's a little bit ironic that probably a lot of us mamas don't have very good body education, right? We've experienced it, but we likely missed a lot when we were kids. I remember like a video or two in school. I vividly remember a pancake ovary in the video. Like the dad was making the pancakes and right? Like that is burned into my mind. But I
Mhm.
don't know that it was, probably not the best education. Probably other mamas also feel stuck explaining to their daughters because maybe we don't know the science. So cliff notes, please, Miss Jackie, on what moms maybe should understand about the whole fertility cycle, not just the 3 to 7 days, right, of bleed that we always call our cycle, but that's not the cycle.
Right, right. That's what we learn. We learn that, that what we need to know is when we bleed and, and that's the only thing to pay attention to. That's the only thing that, women learn to identify. I remember it wasn't until I was in college that all of a sudden, I'm sitting on the toilet in my dorm and I noticed this like super long strand of cervical mucus coming out of me, but I didn't know what it was. I mean, I didn't call it. So I was like, what is this? Is this like what I see those cream commercials for? Do I have an infection? Like, should I ask my roommate? Oh gosh, no, she'd think I was weird. Like, I had no support. I didn't know where to go. And I didn't know, and I nobody had ever taught me what this stuff was. So when we teach the girls about their entire cycle, we say, look, there's this dynamic hormonal changes that are constantly happening. You are literally chemically different every single day of your cycle. And so, yes, you have these days of bleeding at the beginning of your cycle. But then as your estrogen starts to rise, your body's going to produce this cervical mucus. And when you see that fluid, that it maybe starts out cloudy and white in color, and then it progresses in water contact to get more stretchy and clear in color, and you see that, like, that is a healthy sign that your hormones are working the way they're supposed to, and that your body is growing and fortifying its bones, um and improving your immune system, and supporting your heart health, and like all the things that these beautiful hormones do. When you see that cervical mucus, I mean, you are awesome, right? It's a beautiful thing that your body's capable of, and it has so many health benefits for you. So it's not something that, like, oh, what am I seeing, right? But that is a very beautiful indicator on the outside of your body of what your endocrine system's doing on the inside. And so empowering girls with that knowledge, then they know, oh, okay. And then if you tell them when that mucus disappears, you start counting more or less 12 days, and then you know exactly when your period's going to start. You don't have to be surprised. You don't have to be confused. And then to also tell them that there are certain, emotional and energy wise well-being changes that'll happen with those hormonal shifts. So being aware of that, being aware of when your energy is going to rise and you're feeling very social, and maybe at other times where it's probably more normal for you to want to be alone and reading books and give yourself extra time to rest, like that's okay. Those are the natural flows of you as a woman. That doesn't mean that you're bipolar or you're crazy or anything's wrong with you, so letting them know that it's okay to be you. And I mean, because I've seen, some of my clients that are in their 20s and 30s, and they've been fighting against themselves for decades, trying to get themselves to be the same every single day and perform at this top level every single day. And then they realize, wow, that was never even a realistic possibility based on my biology. Like, it's okay for me to be different at different times of the month. And they just have a sigh of relief, like, oh, I'm so, like, thank goodness that there's a reason why I am the way I am, and that it doesn't mean that I'm bad, but it actually means that I'm good, because it gives me this amazing ability inside me to carry new life within me. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a great quick overview. And Jackie, we've got a couple posts over on my other blog, Kitchen Stewardship, that kind of walk through each phase of that cycle and the energy and the nutrient needs. And I mean, it is fascinating and amazing. And you can feel it once you know what to look for. You're absolutely right. And what a gift for teens to hear that it's normal to feel different day to day. Right? They don't have to choose like this one identity or, feeling or personality that they have to feel they have to wear every day. That girls are different than boys, and that girls are different throughout their cycle. Completely, completely beautiful. And so I bet a lot of moms have questions because that may have been the first time they heard the phrase cervical mucus. Right? That's that's the sign of fertility, that your body has produced an egg and is ready to make a baby if that happens to be in the plans for that month, right? So, ta-da, ladies, you've possibly learned something if you're not already, family planning educated. And we need to know more. We've got to understand this stuff. How many of us had an experience like you had in college? Like, am I sick? Right? Do I need one of those creams I saw in the commercial? It's very empowering to understand the whole cycle, not just, the bleeding part that people sell products for, so they feel they should educate us so that we know to buy their products. What kinds of problems or negative things happen when girls don't understand about their cycles, which is probably the majority of current young tweens and teens, as well as the majority of adults? Grace, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. Well, I think, we see a lot of the fallout of that in the confusion in our culture around what it means to be a woman, what it means to embrace our femininity. Because I think we have let multiple generations of women now feel so alienated from their bodies, that accepting this reality is even harder than it should be. I mean, I don't know that a single woman has ever, that I've spoken to who's come into this knowledge later in life. We've all had that same experience that Jackie described of at some point thinking that a normal, healthy fertility sign was a yeast infection, a sign of a problem, right? And that should just absolutely blow our minds, because this is something that all women experience, and it's a sign of good health. And for some reason, it's signaled to all of us at one point before, hopefully we became enlightened to this knowledge that there was something wrong. Like that should, let that sit for a second. How big a disservice we have done to multiple generations of women by not giving them this very, very basic biological information about their bodies. And you think about the light bulb that goes off in your head and that sense of relief that you get when you finally learn that, no, this is good, this is healthy, this is right. But you hear it, in your 20s or 30s. That's a feeling that we need to be giving girls so much earlier, so that they don't go through that same confusion, so that they don't go through those same like heart-wrenching feelings of like, what's wrong with me? What is going on? Can I even talk about it? This is so shameful. This is so gross. If this is what it means to be a woman, do I even want to be a woman? Maybe not. Maybe I want to throw in the towel on this femininity, this womanhood thing altogether, right? And I think we are reaping what we have sown in keeping young women in the dark about their bodies. We see that in the culture right now.
Confusion
So
is the word. Yeah.
yeah, Absolutely. And then, it's just more about tearing down this pernicious lie that to be worth anything, we have to be more like men, right? That's really kind of the fundamental lie of the birth control pill, which stops us from cycling altogether. And which we tell girls, when they're younger, oh, it'll regulate your cycle. Well, it doesn't do that. It takes it away completely and actually makes you more like a man. It makes you more even keel. Men don't cycle over a month like we do. That's why we have those ebbs and flows in energy over the course of a month. And I think, especially for young girls, we really see that in athletics. I mean, I swam varsity swim team all through high school and had male coaches who definitely did not understand why, the female athletes would have these ebbs and flows in energy that the male athletes just didn't have. And so there's that pressure, especially for like young athletic women, to be rising to the same occasion that the boys seemingly are, right? Like you have to put in the work every single day. You have to, you can't, these variabilities in energy are just like not acceptable.
It's
And
like
that's
they
where we
blame our
see,
lack of willpower or something,
right,
right? It's
exactly.
definitely
Something,
seen as a
yes.
deficit. The same
Yep.
thing happens, by the way, and maybe you know this in research. Most research is done with men because they're the
Yep.
same every day. So it's easier for the researchers,
Yep.
but it means that women probably don't have, prescription pharmaceuticals or other products that are actually a fit for us because
Well,
no one
that's
is
why
acknowledging.
I think it's over 90% of drugs that are removed from the market eventually are because of adverse effects in women. And
Ooh,
it's because women are not studied in pharmaceutical research and other kinds of health research because we are so different day to day. And so, even scientific research has thrown in the towel on us and said, you're too complicated. We're just going to stick to men. So, I mean, that's a subject for a whole other,
right.
day. But I just giving young girls this really pernicious idea, this lie, this belief that they have to be like men to be worthwhile, to succeed, to do anything right. And we just see the way that it seeps into so many different aspects of academia, of athletics,
Mhm.
and to be uh, the one for our daughters, telling them like, no, this is actually all wrong, and you can embrace who you are, and you can feel what you feel, and it's actually going to be better for your health, both physically, mentally, emotionally, all the different ways in the long run. That can be a really powerful gift to give to your daughter, and
100%.
we
Yeah.
need to be the ones to give it to them,
We
frankly.
do. No, no, I so look forward to the day when all of culture, but even in individual family units, that the variability of femininity is valued, right?
Yeah.
Is seen for our superpowers. And it will come. I mean, natural womanhood is going to be part of that push that we will eventually figure it out. But right now, boy, it feels like it does feel like a mess. We've got to address the pill a little bit. It's a personal soapbox for me. It's a topic that breaks my heart. As you said, it does not even do what it promises to do. Let's talk a tiny bit about the science behind the contraceptive pill, maybe how it got started, its initial intent, its actual intended use versus its continuously applied use, it seems, and some of those consequences. Do either of you feel like grabbing that question?
I think Grace, maybe.
Well, so the development of the pill started with Margaret Sanger. She wanted something quick and easy daily that could be taken for women to prevent pregnancy. They tested it on women in insane asylums who could not give informed consent. They tested it on poor Puerto Rican women in slums in Puerto Rico who could also not give informed consent. Um, there were women who died during the trials, and it just kind of got swept under the rug. There are a lot of women who dropped out of the trials because they could not stand the side effects. And if anybody listening wants to hear those side effects, they're the same ones as women feel today. But for some reason, we just said, oh, no, it's okay. Just deal with it. The formulations are a lot less strong than they were. It's true when it was first being studied, but we still see all of the same side effects. So the fatigue, that the things that Jackie alluded to, the loss of libido, the brain fog. Women would start it in these trials and quit in droves. And actually, there's a letter If you are familiar with McCormick Foods, who isn't, right? We all have McCormick spice bottles in our cabinets. So Catherine McCormick, the heiress to McCormick Foods, bankrolled production of research on the pill. And there's a letter from Catherine McCormick to Margaret Sanger. I forget which one said it to the other, but something to the effect of, if only we had a cage of ovulating females to test upon, because they were so
Ouch.
fed up, yep, with all the women dropping out from the trials on the pill. So very, very pro-feminine, just pro-woman stuff, right? Yeah, rah
Yeah,
feminism.
totally, women leaders.
That's the lie that we've been sold about the pill. And so yeah, a lot of yucky stuff in the early days of research and development on the pill. A lot of gaslighting women, making them feel like what they were experiencing was all in their heads, which again, that's probably a familiar experience for a lot of the listeners. You know, and unfortunately, we just see more of the same today. Everything that's old is new again, because every new formulation of the pill that they put out, that they try to make it sound like, oh, it's this new and exciting new thing. They all function the same way, which is to shut your cycle down, primarily to stop you from ovulating. And if you're not ovulating, you're not menstruating. You have to release an egg to then menstruate later if it's not fertilized. So it's a lie that it regulates your cycle, because it takes it away. And then the other features are to thicken your cervical mucus, thin your endometrial lining, so that if conception still manages to occur, that newly conceived life will not be able to implant within your uterus. So that's how the first pills function. That's how every single formulation of hormonal birth control still continues to function today. They have different generations of the hormones that they use, but they're all still, at the end of the day, synthetic estrogen, synthetic progesterone, in some kind of combination. Sometimes the synthetic progesterone's on its own, but it absolutely does not function in your body the same way as your natural hormones do. And in fact, these synthetic hormones tell your body not to produce your own natural hormones. And that comes with a lot of downstream effects that we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of in research.
And Grace, what of our young women, our young girls who are cycling but are not in sexual relationships, are being prescribed birth control for, to me, what feels like off-label use? Perhaps it's on label now, just for all of these cycle dysregulations. Let's talk a little bit about negative ramifications there. You
Yeah,
know, for a girl who's like, I'm not even, sexually active. This is just fixing a problem I have.
you're correct. A lot of the prescription of the pill is off label. It's not even approved for a lot of what it's prescribed for, which is also crazy. Yeah, it's kind of become the catch-all, just band-aid that we slap on women, right? Oh, you have painful cycles, birth control pill. Oh, you have bad acne, birth control pill. Oh, you have this. Oh, you have that, birth control pill. And it really, at the end of the day, has set women's health back. That's why we hear like, oh, it takes a decade to diagnose endometriosis. It takes a decade to detect PCOS. Well, it's because at the very first sign of cycle irregularity, we put young women on the pill. It kind of might take away some of the symptoms. And it's only 10, 15, 20 years later, when she gets off of it in the hopes of getting pregnant, that all of those symptoms come raging back. She can't seem to get pregnant when she wants to. And that's when doctors are like, okay, well, maybe we'll take a look and see what's going on. If they don't, then just immediately jump to IVF at that point. And then that's when women in their, late 20s, early 30s are learning for the first time that the painful periods they had as a 13-year-old were actually because they had endometriosis all along. And so it's done this really, really big disservice to women's health as a whole, because we've just slapped band-aids on things and kicked the can down the road in terms of actually treating women and getting to the root causes. As you talked about, Katie, this is a huge root cause issue where we just can't even seem to bother ourselves to find the root cause, because, well, no, the birth control pill's there. We'll just use that and that'll take care of it until some other doctor deals with it 20 years from now.
Right. And it's still our bodies, right? That Band-Aid effect is the opposite of root cause resolution, and such a problem. Jackie, what were you going to add?
Yeah, and particularly for teenagers that are in like this crucial, phase of development in their life, like that monthly surge of estrogen, I guess, like I was alluding to earlier, produces so many health benefits for them. That's the reason
Mm.
why, if a girl gets put on like the Depo-Provera shot, I mean, they automatically give her calcium because it's going to deplete her bones, you know, and then she's going to end up with osteoporosis younger in life, but if she has that estrogen throughout those years where her bones are growing dramatically, they fortify her bones, they make them stronger every time she ovulates and has a cycle. Same thing with her immune system and with her heart health. Her brain function and development is being stimulated by that estrogen surge. I mean, even simple things like collagen production, and how clear your skin is and things like that. A lot of that is influenced by estrogen production. So, shutting that down at that crucial time of development, can really, breast development. Every time that estrogen surges, new breast lobules are growing inside those teen girls' breasts so they can be successful in breastfeeding their babies when they're adults, so they need all that crucial hormone shift and hormone rises, and it's a really disservice to them and their health and their longevity to suppress that during their teen years.
That
And
is fascinating. I didn't know that one.
we have a series on the Natural Womanhood website called Reasons Women Need Periods. And we go into really great detail on all of those different aspects that Jackie just talked about. So for anybody who wants to learn more, I really suggest going and checking out that series. Because if we are talking about teen girls today, especially, you need to know that if you're the mother of a teen girl, or if you are a teen girl, that taking a birth control pill is not like taking candy, even though it's prescribed that way. It's going to shut down your cycle, and that's going to have so many more downstream effects than just, easing your bleeding or easing the pain that you feel with your bleeding every month. And that's not to say that you have to like white knuckle through the heavy bleeding or the pain that you might be feeling with your period. If you are having really intense cycles, that's actually a clue that you need to get real help, that there is something going on, because periods should not be that painful. They should not be so heavy that
Mhm.
you're filling super pads every 2 hours. If that's going on, that's your body trying to tell you something. And rather than slap a band-aid on it and ignore it, you need to get to the bottom of it. You need to find a provider who will take it seriously, who will get to the root cause of it, so that you can not only protect your fertility for the future, which might seem kind of abstract to teen girls, but will protect your body now. Because as Jackie just, excellently pointed out in all those different ways, your cycle is part of your physical and mental development as a woman. And if you're shutting it down, there's all sorts of things that are not happening in your body that should be.
It's so empowering to understand, right, how the body is supposed to work, because then when you can more easily see the problems and say, well, at least I might not know how to fix it yet, but I know that there's something that's going awry. It is sometimes difficult, unfortunately, in the world where the culture just gives the pill and medical doctors are trained to just give the pill. It can be difficult to find someone who can help you, but they are out there. And so knowledge is for sure the first step. And that's what you ladies do so very well. We know that we want to kind of flip that script and focus on the positive. So like, how old should girls be when moms start teaching about fertility? We know schools aren't going to do it. Not right, at least. Not with the ovary pancakes. That's not happening. Um, Jackie, when should we start? Give us a little bit of a playbook here.
Yeah, I think definitely when your daughters start asking questions, like if they have questions, I mean, welcome those questions as conversation starters. Definitely don't shut those down. Um, I mean, girls can start developing anywhere between the age of 8 and 12. So that's where like the program that we've developed is geared towards, very simplistic explanations that even girls as young as 8 can understand. But if even if their body isn't changing, I mean, it's guaranteed probably some of their peers are, and that's going to spur questions in their mind. Well, why is she starting to wear a bra, or why is this happening to her? And being able to give them, the actual reason for why those changes are happening before they develop some preconceived notion in their head, before they come up with some myth about, why their body's change and why, and have a perception on them of whether it's good or bad. You want to be in there guiding them through those changes, and giving them the accurate information so that they have, a true understanding of okay, this is why my body's going to change. this is why I'm going to bleed. This is why it's so good and so healthy for me. So that, I mean, from the onset, like, it's so much harder to kind of repair the broken images that people have of womanhood. And, but if you can give them that positive perspective from the beginning, yeah, we can avoid all those problems we were talking about. I mean, one of the other ones I was thinking of in my head was eating disorders. It's amazing how many of the girls we've talked to, even, I mean, even like in well-adjusted women in college that, had a very supportive family around them, but when their body started changing and their hips started widening, I mean, they did not like this, the different ways their body was changing, and they grafted onto control by, an eating disorder, and that, really harmed their health as well too, and it became something that they had to overcome later in life, like a big scar. So letting them know that, oh, if your hips are widening, if your breasts are developing, like, that's good, that, you're going to need all these things to, to have this amazing superpower to again, like, linking that towards that future ability to be a mother, and how beautiful that is. Like, that's okay, that's a good thing to be, and not making them, not to where they have some other ideas built up in their head that are negative, or that are put there by the culture, that you have to be this certain body ideal, whatever's on Instagram, that's who you have to be. And it's like, no, 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 that none of that is true. Let me share with you what's true.
Yes, truth and beauty, and also it's not too late, right? If your child is already kind of having cycles, it doesn't mean that you've missed your chance, right? It's better in high school than in college or 20s or 30s. So Natural Womanhood has developed this incredible online course for mothers of preteens. Tell us a little bit about like what it includes and sort of what your intent is as far as how that teaching, those moments should look.
Well, is it okay, Grace? So
Yeah.
we have, yeah, this beautiful curriculum. It's 10 on-demand videos, online content that you can watch at your own pace with your daughter. We have PDF guides that go through all the science, so the mom has that resource where, any question that she feels like she might not be able to answer, she can go there and get that as a resource. Like, okay, this is all the science behind it, so she can be prepared or feel prepared to have that conversation. We have conversation starters, like discussion questions at the end of each video. We also have a little bit of a guide for moms where they can kind of do a little self-reflection themselves and say, like, what has my fertility journey been like? Do I have, negative perceptions of my own body because I've, had to suffer through, miscarriages, or I don't know, all kinds of things, or, cycle, irregularity myself. What has my journey as a woman been like? And, what would I like to give to my daughter? So the videos are all less than 10 minutes. So it's just a little bit of information at a time. So the girls don't feel like, whoa, drinking through the water hose, the fire hose. They get a little bit at a time, and then they have an opportunity to open up that, that authentic conversation with their mothers, and kind of realize that their mother should be their primary source for getting this information. And so hopefully building up those relationships really is our main goal, is like for mothers and daughters to connect on this, so that the daughter knows that she's supported and loved, that she has a resource in her mother, that she's the one I can always turn to. And so that's our main goal. But yeah, the curriculum starts out with puberty changes, so just talking about those physical changes our body's going to go through. Then the very next thing we talk about is why are those changes going to happen, so that she understands. We go through anatomy, we go through ovulation as the key event in her cycle, and all the good things that happen because of ovulation, and the fact that ovulation is what makes new life possible. We talk about we call it the symphony of the cycle, right? All those different hormones that change throughout our cycle, kind of putting it all together, how they work with the anatomy. We give them a basic understanding of cycle charting, just becoming self-aware, learning to identify what their body is doing, so they learn themselves, they have a better relationship with themselves. We and then we give them some healthy habits, and then some kind of reflections at the end of, if you are made this awesome, if you are made, in this beautiful way that has this amazing power to bring new life into the world, then what does that mean for your value, and how you should be respected, and how you need to, protect yourself, and expect that you should receive that respect and that value from the people around you.
Mm.
So it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that is a powerful and important message that I do not think our teen and tween girls are hearing. I know some important points that you say about the course is it's not a sexual health course, right? It's not a religious ed course. This is biological, anatomical, about puberty changes and fertility. And I love that you focus on the relationship between mom and daughter too. I mean, I have a teenage daughter and I say, at the end of the day, if she will still talk to us at least, I don't know, 70% of the time about things that matter, it doesn't matter if she hates us. I mean, this morning I was told I was the meaner of the two parents, right? My husband is nicer and I'm stupid like his car is stupid. It was a rough ride to school. That's like a 4 minutes. But I'm like, that's okay. It's morning. Teenagers' circadian rhythms are horrible. It probably felt like 3 in the morning to her, even though it was 6:50. And but at the end of the day, like if we can still have conversations, sometimes it's okay if the door slams in our face. The other times, right? And so what more important topic to bond over than our femininity, right? That's the shared gift of mothers and daughters. What kind of stories are you hearing as mothers and daughters go through this, that the impact is happening? Grace, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll start and then I'll let Jackie jump in because she's probably got some great ones too. But I know some of my favorite reviews that I've read from moms who've done the program with their daughters uh, tend to say more about the mom, even where I think the best one I read was, I'm enjoying, this is from the perspective of a mom, I'm enjoying the change that I'm feeling in my own self, talking about my body and my fertility and my femininity in such a positive way for the very first time in my life. The mindset set shift that it's causing in moms, I think, is so powerful because that is really where we have to start. I think we have to, as moms, and I've just got really little girls right now, but we have to own, what we've been through, what we feel about our bodies, so that we can kind of be the change that our daughters need to see. Because we can tell them all day long about how wonderful and beautiful and dignified they are as young women, but what's really going to make the difference is how we talk about ourselves. And if we feel a certain way about ourselves, how we talk about ourselves is going to come through, right? So hearing that from moms, that mindset shift is really happening in them is so it's so validating to me to hear those stories.
That's beautiful. Jackie, Grace thought you might have something to add.
Yeah, I did go through the program with my 12 turning 13-year-old, who wasn't, I mean, we started to, when we noticed what signs to look for, she started to kind of pay attention to her body. And so she hadn't started her cycle just yet, but she started to, be able to identify cervical mucus. She even started to kind of count days when she would see the mucus go away and things like that. And she had an expectation, or like just an idea that maybe, if I'm counting these days, maybe my period might start. And so um I remember, like it just so happened that I was like out in the hallway and she was in the bathroom, like, but she looked through the window, I mean through the doorway, and she kind of like showed me like, Mom, is this blood? you know like she was totally comfortable, like it was no big deal. And I was like, oh yeah, honey, there it is. Like she caught it and she felt like, wow, I knew enough about my body to know like this was going to be my period. I was going to start. And so that was her very first experience. It was like so just comfortable at home, not a big deal. And I just love watching, how um she knew her little period pouch in her backpack was there. She's gone back to school and just really managed it with such grace. And I don't know, I'm really impressed with her, because I don't think my experience was like that at all.
That's
And
an I mean, for moms to think, like, how many of us had any idea that our very first period was going to arrive? Because I think that's what you just described, right? Is that your
yeah,
12-year-old
yeah,
could
that
kind
was
of
her very
predict her
first, that was
very first
menarche,
one.
that was her very first period.
That
Yeah.
alone is worth it, because the fear of when that's going to happen and where you'll be and what month or week, you know what I mean? What's going to be going on in your life? Like, to have some semblance of a prediction, pretty amazing.
Yeah. And then I gave an intro to the cycle recently to a shelter of girls that are foster care and trafficked girls that just need, I guess, more intense care because they've experienced trauma, and so they have this day where presenters come in and give, just all kinds of lessons about health and things. And so we were one of those presenters, and um, I wasn't sure what to expect, because I don't know what these girls have been through, uh, but just talking about, because a lot of them have already been pregnant, they've already had miscarriage. I mean, and they're 13, 14, 15, 16. I mean, just these stories of, what they've been through. And then, oh, that's what that is. Oh, I mean, just the way their eyes were opening. Oh, I can have some kind of control over this. Oh, I can know what to expect. Oh, I'm not fertile every single day of my cycle. No way. Because, I mean, like, just, it was amazing to see how hungry they were for this information, and how it like gave them, like this sense of control over their lives when they feel like everything else is out of control. Like, oh, okay, at least this I can have knowledge about, and I can have some kind of, understanding and control of. And um I wish I could have, stayed and been with them more, but it was just wonderful to see, how much even this information can, give them some kind of peace of mind.
Yeah, for sure. Knowledge is power. Let's pull it kind of back to the family. I always love to end with something super practical, right? We learn as moms and dads so much through these interviews, but what would be the most practical step that a parent could accomplish right away when they finish listening to this interview? And Jackie, I'll have you go first, and then Grace. So you're the only interview ever to be able to give 2 practical tips. I'm just saying.
Oh, um the thing that comes to my mind right now is like listening skills. Like, I know it's silly, but work on our listening skills of like when our children start talking and maybe they say things that we totally don't agree with, or that are quite shocking. Like, don't, like maintain the open posture and just kind of listen and ask more questions to understand, because I think that that's like a huge part of building that relationship where they feel, like we understand them and we have their back and we want to be in their corner. Because if right away we start kind of combating what they're saying and trying to correct them, which they probably need correction, I'm not saying they don't, but um, do it in a way where first they feel heard and they feel acknowledged. I feel like that will then give us this opening into being able to discuss these more intimate topics in a way where they feel, open to receiving what we have to say because we first kind of received them.
Beautiful. Certainly an important reminder for many of us, especially those who love to talk, that we need to listen more and potentially ask more questions than just piling on the answers. Yes, it's me too. That's how I know how to describe that woman. Grace, what do you think is the first practical step a mom or dad could take after listening to this?
Gosh, it's tough to follow that because I feel like that really, really does say it. I think kind of following on what Jackie said is not to have fear. Like, don't automatically respond with a question your teenager asks you about, you know, the birth control pill, or because likely they have friends who are having different experiences than they are, or they've seen something on TV, or they've heard something in a song. Don't
Mhm.
automatically jump to like the worst possible conclusion that your teen is maybe doing something you'd rather they not be doing. Try to be objective when you answer them, and do answer them, because that's really the key. Is they need to know that you're the one that they can come to. And if you haven't already opened those lines of communication when they're younger, it might take a little bit more work to do that when they're older. But so use every question they ask you as an opportunity to do that, and to take a beat first, and to not let the fear take over, or to let the worry take over, and just answer their question as basically and openly and honestly as you can, because teens especially are barometers for BS, right? Like, they know when you're beating around the bush and don't want to answer a question, and that'll make them more reluctant to come to you with even bigger questions. So don't be afraid to answer the question, but also answer it in kind of the most basic way without giving too much information. I think we fear that we part of the fear comes from feeling like we have to explain it all at once,
Right.
but that can be as overwhelming to our kids as it is to us, when they're like, well, gosh, mom, all I wanted to know was the answer to that question. And you gave me a whole primer on whatever subject. So yeah, I think don't fear, don't overthink, the questions that your kids come to you with, and do your best to answer them as simply and honestly as you possibly can.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I absolutely agree that knowledge is power, right? And also the power of the pause when when it comes to those teen questions. And really, we're talking about education, right? And so we will make sure anywhere this interview is shared that links and connections to the Natural Womanhood's Mothers of Preteens course are included, that you can find them. Sometimes our answer as a parent is, I'm not sure, but I will look that up, right? The more you hit those questions, the more you think, I might need a really trusted resource where I can look that up, or get to the point where I don't need to look it up because we've learned this together, right? What a beautiful vision of moms and daughters learning together. So thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much, Grace. Natural Womanhood is a fantastic resource, and I'm honored to have hosted you today.
Thanks for having us, Katie.
Friends, the Healthy Parenting Connector is always here to connect you, parents who really want to raise healthy, independent adults, with experts who have the information you need. It is my hope that you learned something for yourself today, and also that you learned something that can improve your parenting. I will see you back next week with another great interview.